Hi, I'm Victor Deanda, and I'm a Gen Xer.
Hi, I'm Darian Davis, and I'm a millennial.
Join us now as we loop back in time to revisit the movies stuck inside of our heads. It's the podcast about traversing the generational divide. This is FilmLoop. Hey everyone, welcome back to FilmLoop. Thanks for listening. Welcome to our first themed episode. That's right, this is the Halloween episode.
Woo!
Scary!
That was a creepy laugh. That was a very creepy laugh, but I loved it. Dude, so a first themed episode, and it's Halloween. So, I mean, what are some of your favorite Halloween memories? Just give me one. Just give me one.
Just one. I remember when I was a kid, I had a trick-or-treat bag that was plastic.
Yeah.
Had plastic handles.
Mm-hmm.
I was trick-or-treating with my sister and my cousin. They ran ahead of me to the next house that we were going to, and I heard this whoosh behind me. Some kids had pulled and ripped my trick-or-treat bag. All I was left with were the handles to this thing. And I just saw them disappear into the night down the sidewalk. And one of the guys, they were older guys, right? I was like a kid. One of the guys turned around as he was running backwards, and he said, "Sorry."
It's like, not sorry, not sorry.
Right. What about you?
So one of my favorite, very bizarre, one of my favorite memories is I got a hot dog once. Literally, it was in one of those like foil sleeves.
It was warm.
It was warm, and it was one of
Ew.
those foil sleeves, and it just got slipped into my bag, and
Nasty.
that was it.
Did you eat it?
I don't remember eating it. I think my parents took it from me. So thank God for that. I might not be sitting here today.
They probably wanted to make sure there weren't any razor blades in it or anything like that.
True.
Wow. Hot dog for trick or treat.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the episode, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, Darian. So what do you got this week?
Victor, you are in for a real treat for my pick. This movie for me and many others of my generation. An entire season doesn't officially start until seeing this film. It's a festive Halloween affair with an original story, wonderfully random musical numbers, and the wickedly divine Miss M.
Jump back, twist the bones and bend the back.
Back in 1693, the people of Salem, Massachusetts, witches,
Yes?
thought they got rid of the Sanderson sisters for good.
We shall be back.
300 years later, it's Halloween Eve, and they're back.
We're home.
Are you boys a little old to be trick-or-treating?
We're talking about 3 ancient hags versus the 20th century. How bad can it be?
Now they're digging up old friends
God, what a stench.
and running amok,
Come on.
looking for the one thing they miss most.
You stay for supper.
I'm not hungry.
But we are.
Only one boy has the power to stop them
Prepare to die again!
You have no powers here, you fool!
before all Salem falls under their spell.
Hell on you.
Walt Disney Pictures presents Bette Midler,
Hello?
Sarah Jessica Parker,
Would thou dance with me?
and Kathy Najimy. Hocus Pocus.
Into the night!
They love to fly, and it shows.
Good night. Sleep tight. No screaming.
Hocus
All right.
Pocus. Hocus Pocus, man. This is a classic. This is a classic millennial film. It got played over and over and over again on ABC Family and Disney Channel and everywhere else you could think of.
Is that where you saw it? You saw it on TV first, or did you see it in the theater?
No, I saw this movie first at my aunt's house because it was a family movie. Like the family would watch this all the time, and she was the first one to introduce it to me, and I didn't know other people knew about this film until I saw it on TV.
I see. You know, you call it a family movie, but I watched this movie and I was like, wait, this is Disney? It starts with a hanging.
Disney had its dark sides, man. There were some dark moments to it. I mean, the movie would be nothing. I'm just going to get it right into it. The movie would be nothing without Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. I mean, these three women make this movie what it is. You could say anything else you want about it, but you cannot touch these three women. They are genius comedic actors, and they each bring something perfect to their roles. I mean, they're almost form-fitted just for them.
I think Bette Midler is the best thing about this movie. Those teeth.
Oh,
Hysterical.
They're great.
I think Sarah Jessica Parker, you know, this was done like 2 years after LA Story. She's still playing the same character, kind of a ditzy blonde, which is kind of sad to me. I wanted to kind of see more from her in this movie.
She plays her role, yeah. I mean, okay, so just to back up for a second, because we will get to those three lovely ladies in a minute. This film was released in July of 1993. So I was a young one. But it was directed by Kenny Ortega, who we talked about in a previous show.
That is correct.
He did choreography for Xanadu.
Right.
And now he's back doing doing Hocus Pocus. He directed High School Musical, the widely popular musical on Disney Channel. And also This Is It, which for those that don't know was the Michael Jackson film documentary that was released shortly after he passed away.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah. This film was written by David Kirshner. Well, he came up with the story, and then Michael Garrison. The story is original. I mean, it was first kind of conceived when David Kirshner basically he was sitting out on the porch with his children. And they saw a cat, and he started making up this whole story about the cat had all the existed as a boy, was turned into a cat, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And it created this whole story.
Was the cat's name Binks in his story?
In his story, I don't know, but Thackeray Binks. It's a classic moment, the classic line. Me and my wife recite that all the time.
It seems like the screenwriters on this film, Mick Garris, who's a big horror guy, he's done many Stephen King adaptations.
I did not know that.
And a director as well.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, Neil Cuthbert, who wrote Mystery Men and Pluto Nash. Seems like an odd pairing to me.
Yeah.
But this whole film, it's like, okay, so it's a Disney film, but there's all these little adult touches. And I mean, did you get that when you were a kid? Like the whole Yabos thing?
Oh, you got to the Yabos. Yes. I love that dress, but I couldn't wear anything like that because I don't have, what do you call them, Max? Yabos? Max likes your Yabos. In fact, he loves them.
Crazy.
You won't know how many times I've recited that line. It's great. Yeah, I mean, as a kid, especially the Yabos, but as a kid, I knew the moments and I knew they went over my head for sure.
Right.
But I knew there was something like, I don't know if I'm supposed to know that yet, But they played that stuff on Disney Channel we got that. We just didn't get it, when we were kids.
That's crazy because there's the whole bus scene where the witches ride the bus.
Yeah. Yes.
Sarah Jessica Parker is sitting on the guy's lap.
Yeah. Boppo, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyone ever tell you you're really easy on the ice? Yeah. And then there's a part where they get off the bus and the bus driver, basically he's like, when they're just getting onto the bus, he's like, what is this? They're like, what is this contraption? He's like, it's something that'll take you to see your forbidden desires. And she's like, oh, we desire children. He's like, I think that'll take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'll be a problem. It's like, yeah, you get that, but I didn't get it as a kid, and it's there for adults because obviously this is a family film, but you want to put something in there that adults are going to laugh at too.
And this was rated PG, right?
Yeah, PG.
Back in those days, I know this is like a hard PG, I guess.
Oh yeah, very
with
hard.
scenes like the bus and the hanging.
Yeah. So real quick, for those who don't know this movie, the synopsis here, Basically, there's 3 witch sisters back in Salem, old Salem, witch trial times, beginning of, the Plymouth, plantation. Centuries ago, the 3 sisters, they basically are resurrected into modern day, and they're trying to suck the lives out of the children of Salem to live forever. But they have to do that all within Halloween night, or else, they go away. And, in order for them to be resurrected, it has to be lit by the black flame candle, which can only be lit by a virgin on Halloween night. And they play on that the entire movie. And it does get tired. It does get old. And as a kid, I was like, well, what's a virgin? Which got into the question, well, a virgin means someone who hasn't had sex. Well, what is sex? And it was a bad spiral.
Yeah, I was like, that's like a running gag in the movie, the whole virgin lighting the candle. Like, even at the end when Binks is reunited with his sister, she's like, what took you so long? He's like, oh, I had to wait for a virgin to light the candle.
Yeah, it's like, you don't get away from it. Even when the movie has its grandiose ending, you can't get away from that. So let's get into some of these moments in this film. I mean, you're introduced to Bette Midler's character as Winifred Sanderson, and the Sanderson sisters, Sarah Jessica Parker, who plays Sarah Sanderson, and Kathy Najimy, who plays
Mary, I think.
Mary
Right.
Sanderson. They back in the early times, they lure Binks' sister away first. They get her to come out, and then basically they hang the witches for they accuse them of being witches. So Salem witch trial,
but not before they turn Binks into a cat.
right? Binks gets turned into a cat, and they do the whole magical sing-song, spell on him, and he just transforms into a cat. So transformed 300 years later, and the teacher's telling the story to these modern-day kids, these 90s kids, about the story of the Salem Sanderson witches who have become legend in this town.
In Salem.
And
I didn't get that either. Like, okay, I'm like, what grade are these kids in? You don't
They're
find out
obviously-
till later that it's high school.
Yeah, they're obviously in high school, I think. But so the main character we follow around is Max Dennison, and he's played by Omri Katz.
Right. And then you've got Vanessa Shaw.
Yep.
Vanessa Shaw and
Plays
Thora
Allison.
Birch.
Yeah. Vanessa Shaw plays Allison, and Thora Birch plays Max's sister, or Omri Katz's sister, Danny.
Mm-hmm.
They're the 3 main leads, but you follow Max. He's in this town. He's moved from California to Salem. He doesn't like it, but he's trying to pick up the hot girl in school.
Right.
And, basically he doesn't believe in all the Hocus Pocus stuff and, Salem witches and things like that. And Allison basically tells him off in class. And so he tries to hit on her. And I thought he was smoothing the day. Like, I had a little crush on Allison. I will admit, she was in my sights.
And then they set up the 2 bullies at the beginning. They start calling him Hollywood because he just moved there
great
from
moment.
L.A.
Yeah, he just moved there from LA, and he's like riding his bike home, and he runs into Ice and his lackey. And he's like,
Oh boy.
yeah. And so basically, they steal his Nikes, his cross trainers, and they call him Hollywood, and basically send him on his way home. And he's like, I hate it here. And he basically throws a fit, like any good teenager would do.
And Charles Rocket plays his dad.
Yes, which I don't know the history behind that. Maybe you can enlighten me.
Yeah, I was wondering why is Charles Rocket in this film?
I do not know.
He was a SNL cast member
Oh,
who actually was famous for getting fired for saying the F word on air.
wow. Incredible. Did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so basically Max and Danny go out trick-or-treating. Max doesn't want to do it. It's a point where, like, before they go out, his dad asks him, what are you supposed to be? He's like a rap singer. And then he turns his hat backwards and sends his kid on his way. The parents go out to a party of their own in, town hall.
Did you catch the Tron guy dancing behind the parents?
I missed that. I totally missed that.
There's an older guy who's in the old Tron outfit.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I got to make a note about that one.
Nice. Thank you for that. Yeah. So basically, they go to Allison's house as one of the trick-or-treat stops. And, Allison tells them about this house, the Sanderson house, which is now a museum that's broken down. So they go to the museum and they light the candle, basically, and then the witches appear and all hell breaks loose, or all mishap breaks loose.
And Binks shows up, right?
Yeah, Binks shows up to kind of stop them and warn them that, now basically you're responsible for having to stop these witches. And they have a run-in with them when they first show up, and they trick them with like the burning flame of death. He's like, oh, he makes fire in his hand. And
then the water. What do you call the water? He sets the sprinkler system.
The burning
off?
rain of death.
Okay.
Yeah. He raises his lighter that he has in his pocket, which
Right.
he doesn't smoke, but apparently he knows how to like frickin' flip a lighter pretty professionally. And he lights the light to the sprinklers.
Yeah.
And they think it's the burning rain of death, and it's just, sprinklers. But they basically he tricks them. And now the witches are like they're trying to get their kids. They're trying to stay alive, so they got to brew this potion in order to give it to kids, suck the lives out of the kids, and stay alive.
It seems really labor intensive, doesn't it? They have to go through all that rigmarole just to get the
It
potion.
wouldn't be a Disney film without that, Victor.
And what about that book? It reminded me of Evil Dead.
Yes, the leather book with the eyeball.
Yeah, the eyeball moving around.
Yeah, which was given to her by the devil himself. It's and Bette Midler just plays that whole moment incredibly. She is, like you said, she makes the film. I mean, skipping ahead, the kids are basically running around trying to warn everybody that these witches are back alive, and they have no idea what to do. And eventually they run back to tell their parents because the police won't believe them and nobody else will believe them. So they run back to town hall and they try to get their parents to believe them. And that's when the great moment breaks out where the witches show up at town hall to cause a flurry.
And then the musical number happens.
Yes, the highlight of the film, one of the best moments, and you get to see Bette Midler on full display with Sarah Jessica Parker and Kathleen and Jimmy backing her up, is that musical number that Kenny Ortega obviously choreographed. It's like you would not get a full Bette Midler if you did not get her doing some cabaret music. It's a classic song. I put a spell on you. It's a spin on that classic song by Sinatra and a few other people.
It's Screaming Jay Hawkins.
Yeah.
I put a spell on you.
Yeah, the original singer, and just twists it to match her voice, and she's incredible in that moment.
That was fun, and like the parents don't believe that they're real witches. They're like, oh, they're just the act.
Yeah,
because
everybody else is dressed up. Everybody else is dressed up at the party. The mom is dressed as Madonna.
That was funny
with the cone boobs.
Yeah, a very adult Halloween party.
Yeah, because she goes to her daughter. She's like, "Do you know who am I supposed to be?" And the daughter's like, "No," and she's like, "Well, isn't it obvious?" No, The night goes on. It's a race against the clock. The witches are trying to get this brew. There's one point where the bus driver drops them off, and they show up at Satan's house, which is basically a guy in the neighborhood who's dressed as Satan, and the guy is
Gary Marshall.
Yeah, which when I first showed Victor this movie, I think he got a sneak peek and was like, "Why is Gary and Penny Marshall in this film?"
Yeah,
and they're uncredited. They're not credited,
and they're wasted in this movie.
Well, they're not. I wouldn't say that.
They didn't have a whole lot to do.
No, but it's a nice little moment. Like that's one of those kind of vignettes in this film where you get the witches kind of interacting with modern day, and they're interacting with they first go in and they see Penny Marshall and she's got curlers in her hair as she's watching TV, and they're like, "Look, Satan has married Medusa," because the guy, Gary Marshall's dressed in the Satan costume,
right?
And so they don't understand anything about this world. And Winifred goes off, or Bette Midler's character goes off into the kitchen and calls it a torture chamber because she sees a mallet.
And then later there's a scene where they're driving away. The kid Max and Vanessa Shaw are driving away in a car trying to escape them, and Bette Midler shows up right next to them on a broom.
Yeah,
they're all riding after them, chasing them, and she says, "Where's your
driver's license
permit?"
Yeah,
and how suddenly she knows all the ins and outs of this new world.
It's the convenience of script writing, don't you know, Victor?
Yeah, it's just a one-liner. It's a one-line joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some funny bits in it. I thought, I think there's a scene, is it the battle in the cemetery where someone, I think it's Doug Jones as the guy, her ex-husband. He says, "Go to hell." And she says, "Oh, I've been there. It's quite nice."
Yeah, he plays Billy Butcherson, her ex-lover who left her for Sarah.
I missed that part.
Yeah, he left her for Sarah, and then, she basically killed him. So he has a vendetta against her and helps the kids kind of defeat her. But there's a point where before they get to the cemetery where they've lured the witches into the high school where they're going to burn them.
Right.
And, when the witches show up, he's like, welcome to high school hell. I'm your host, Boris Karloff Jr.
I missed that.
Oh, dude. Yeah. You got to watch it again.
I like the beginning part of that where they lure them, and then Bette Midler's like, "Oh, what place is this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a prison for children."
Yeah, because Mary's character can sniff out kids because that's her special power. And they
right.
all have special powers. Obviously, Bette Midler's the one that comes up with the schemes, and Mary can sniff out children. And she's like, "Oh, it reeks of children."
And Sarah's the sexy one.
Yes. Yeah. No. And she gets her moment too. I mean, once they obviously they can't die. I mean, they have Halloween night, so they're not going to be able to die. So Bette Midler thinks all is lost. The kids have taken the book. We feel like that's that moment where the kids have won and all is well.
And that was funny because they burn these witches alive in the incinerator.
Yep.
And the next shot, they're just like prancing down the street like, "Yay, we just killed 3 people."
Yeah. Well, they killed 3 witches. They're not people. Anyway,
Semantics.
Yeah. So they, the witches come back and they're lamenting it back at their cottage, and Bette Midler plays it up so well. She's like, all is lost. Take me to the window. I want to see the sun one last time. Goodbye, cruel world.
Yeah.
And so they eventually, the kids end up trying to open the book because they want to help Thackeray. And so when they open the book, Bette Midler's character sees the light from beyond, and it's like, basically they find out where they are. And that's when we get to Sarah Jessica Parker's moment where she gets to shine, and she's basically leaning suggestively over her broom, and she's luring the children back to the cottage because now they have the book, now they have the children. Sarah Jessica Parker sings this lullaby basically to get these kids, to magically, zombify them and come to the cottage.
Right, and like how much later, like I was confused with the timeline. Like how much later in the night was that? Because these kids are all now walking in their Halloween costumes. Some of them are in pajamas.
Yeah. So if you follow through the whole night, they tell you what time it is as you go.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like it's 3:00 when the witches are still trying to find the book, and then by the time they open the book, it's like 5:00. So you're talking about like minutes by the time sunrise happens. So they end up following the witches back to their cottage. It's a lot of this back and forth. It gets tired after a while because they, all these set pieces, they go back to the cemetery, they go back to the cottage.
Yeah, it's back and forth.
It's back and forth. It gets tired, but they trick the witches again, and then the witches lure them back to the cemetery. And that's where the final showdown happens.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the broom effects were cool.
Yeah, those were awesome.
Swooping in and out.
And I mean, Bette Midler did that stuff. The actresses did that stuff.
Really?
They were on the brooms, yeah, and they got rigged up, and
wow,
it was tough, I think, but they stuck it out. This movie it's just a classic film. It's for people of my generation. I mean, they remember this as Halloween. Like this film is Halloween for people in their memories. Funny enough, Leo DiCaprio was supposed to be in this film. A lot of people don't know that.
Really?
He was originally targeted to be in this movie.
To play Max?
Yeah. Guess what he ended up taking instead?
Let me guess. Gilbert Grape.
You got it.
Wow. What do I win?
I think he went with the better option.
Yeah, I think so too.
You got nominated for Academy Award?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got Thora Birch. I thought Thora Birch was excellent in this film.
She was incredible.
I mean, how old is she in this movie?
She was only 9. She was 9 when they filmed this. She also steals every scene she's in.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just incredible. I mean, again, we talk about kid actors. Thora Birch, Christina Ricci. These people are people who understand. I mean, they just had a special talent.
Yeah,
especially as kid actors. Spielberg was actually supposed to be attached to this.
Really?
Yeah. Kirshner wanted Spielberg to direct and produce this film. Obviously, Spielberg, was not going to go for Disney because they were bitter rivals at the time.
Right.
They are competitors. But originally, they wanted Spielberg to kind of take up the production of it.
Huh. And I also noticed that Rhythm and Hughes,
Yes.
they were one of the producers of the film, and I can't help but think that this was a dry run for Babe.
Probably. Yeah.
Because they were experimenting with CG and talking animals and things like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did a lot of the work on Binks when, getting him to talk and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And then, James Horner wrote that song that Sarah Jessica Parker sings.
Oh.
So he had his hand in it for a little bit. And speaking of Sarah Jessica Parker, apparently she is the descendant of a Salem witch.
Really?
That was executed. She found out, I guess one of those shows like where you go back, they do celebrity DNA tests and figure out their lineage. She found out that
Really?
Yeah, one of her descendants is a witch.
Wow.
She was thoroughly, I think she said she was like thoroughly creeped out after that, which I would be too. But again, this is one of those movies. I mean, hopefully you enjoyed it. I've been dying to share this with you.
I thought it was nice. I mean, it's a kid's movie. There's some awkward moments, I thought. The whole Yabo thing, the virgin lighting the candle. They beat that with a dead horse.
Yeah.
It might be different if I saw this when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like if I was your age.
Sure.
But it was definitely, I think, geared towards tweens.
Yeah.
I felt.
But a classic nonetheless. I mean, if you have to see this film at least once. That's my recommendation. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'll see it again, but yeah.
But you got to see the divine Miss M in one of her, what she said, her favorite roles. So that's Hocus Pocus.
Nice.
All right. So continuing with our Halloween theme, from a family-friendly feature to a horrifying, gross, gory zombie film. Victor, what do you have for us?
Well, let me tell you, the year was 1978. Malls and zombies were just hitting the mainstream, and nothing showcased this pairing more than the second film in horror master George Romero's Undead Saga.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time. Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times. Dawn of the Dead. Night of the Living Dead has ended. Dawn of the Dead is here.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
They must be destroyed on sight.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Dawn of the Dead.
Yes, that's right. It's George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, released in 1978. But also, actually, it was released in 78 in Italy, but it didn't come to the U.S. until 79.
Okay, I was going to ask.
I was in junior high, I think, at the time. I desperately wanted to see this movie. I'd read about it in Starlog and Fangoria magazine, but it was released unrated, which was unheard of at the time because those were usually meant for X-rated films. It meant that there was graphic sex or whatever, but George Romero, being the Hollywood maverick that he is, he decided to release the movie unrated.
Yeah.
So as a result, no one under 17 was admitted to this movie.
Wow, that's deep. I had this one on my radar, and I'm so glad you shared this with me because I was so excited to watch this movie. I've owned Night of the Living Dead for the longest time, and so it was only a matter of time till I got to this, but I'm so glad I watched this one.
Nice. Now, when I wanted to see it when I was, in grade school or junior high, but I couldn't, right? My parents weren't going to let me go see this. They weren't going to take me to see this, but there was a kid in my class who got to see it. His parents must have been free spirits who decided to take him to the movies, right? And he saw it, and then he came back he saw it over the weekend. He came back to school on that Monday and was talking about the movie. He was talking about how graphic it was, and then it was like everyone was envious of this kid, right?
Yeah.
He was almost bragging about it. Well, a day later, he stopped talking about it immediately. I think it gave him nightmares for weeks to come.
That's what you get. But dude, just the opening scene in and of itself is intense. I mean, it's hard to watch. I mean, not just the gore, but also the blatant, like the state of humanity, like the blatant racism and just like hatred. Like things are going. You open into this film and things are have descended into madness already.
Right. Things have gone into chaos already. Like you see the TV station at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's chaos. The zombie apocalypse has already begun. There's no real reason given why the zombies are appearing. I mean, later in the film, there's a TV broadcast about it possibly being viral in nature. But yeah, he doesn't really explain why the zombies are coming back to life.
Right.
And do you really need a reason?
No, not at all. And that's the thing is, it sets the mood of the film. You know how society is reacting. You know what state the world is in.
Right.
So when you go further into the movie and it becomes like a more intimate type of film, you know what's happening on the outside, and it paints the world for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed in that first scene in the TV station, the director, that's actually a cameo, George Romero.
Nice.
He's acting as the TV director. And
Awesome.
so, yeah, it opens on chaos. We meet two of our main characters, Francine, played by Galen Ross, and Flyboy, or Steven, played by David MG. I don't know how you pronounce his name. But anyways, things have gone to shit. He's like a traffic reporter, so he flies a helicopter for the news station. He's
I did not get that at first.
Yeah, he's like, meet me on the roof at 9. Don't make me come looking for you. And so they kind of set that up. Then we transition.
Blatant misogyny in this.
Yeah,
film.
definitely. There's definitely a lot of that. Then they transition to the SWAT team.
Yes.
In the Puerto Rican project.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. Like the Puerto Rican guy just looks like a guy with makeup on his face.
Yeah, there's some brown face in here.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole scene disappointed me, and I don't know if it was. I see the point they were trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
It was very hard to watch.
Right.
It was very hard to watch. And it almost felt like a different film. Like after that, the film seemed totally different.
Yeah.
But it set the tone of something really savage, and I wasn't excited for that. But thankfully, it did not keep in that same tone.
Yeah, and then you get the priest.
Yeah.
In that scene, in that opening sequence,
Yeah.
the priest with one leg.
Yeah.
Very creepy, very weird. And he's talking about like he's giving them the last rites. And I mean, this is almost like Romero's thinking this is how it would go. This is a possible way it would happen.
Yeah, it felt real.
Like
I mean,
all civility is gone.
Yeah, and that's where we get to meet Ken Foree's. Am I pronouncing that right?
Ken Foree.
Ken Foree's character, who I will say, when this is hearkening back to a previous episode, but Ken Foree has a connection to Kel Mitchell. He played the dad. He played Keenan's dad.
Oh, jeez.
He played Keenan's dad in Keenan and Kel on Nickelodeon.
Really? Wow. Yeah, he's gone on to do a lot of great films. He's become a cult favorite.
Yeah.
He was in a movie called From Beyond that's crazy that we might turn up in a future episode.
Nice.
Based on an H.P. Lovecraft thing from the guys who brought you Reanimator. It's a crazy movie.
Nice.
But yeah, and he's become, now again, we go back to race with George Romero. You know, Night of the Living Dead, the lead actor is a black actor.
Yeah.
Right? And that just happened, right? I don't think in the script he said, I need a black actor.
Right.
It was just Dwayne Jones who played the lead.
Yeah.
He just happened to be the best actor who showed up for the audition. So Romero cast him, and it created this whole thing where it's like, okay, wow, there's a black lead in this film.
Yeah.
And so now again, Romero's doing that again in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. And it's not like a stereotypical role. I mean, it feels genuine, and you know, the black guy does not die first. You know,
exactly.
He's the one, you know, making decisions and you know, coming up with schemes and things like that. And for me, I mean, watching this guy, I mean, he reminded me a lot of my dad. I mean, I feel like he was very handy, and like it almost seems unreal how knowledgeable he is just about general life. But I think about my dad. My dad's like the same way. He knows things about things, and you know, I have no doubt my dad could survive in a zombie apocalypse.
Wow. That was my next question. Has your dad ever shot a zombie?
He shot, but not a zombie.
So yeah, so they form this unlikely quartet, right? They steal the helicopter, the police helicopter. They leave Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Reminder: this film was set in Philadelphia.
Right.
They take off in the chopper and head east head west. I'm sorry, hoping to avoid the rest of the zombie apocalypse, or at least most of it.
Right.
And so then we get to the famous helicopter scene. They stop, and that's actually was shot in Monroeville,
Yes.
PA.
Yep.
So they stop. Then
My
we
family
meet,
is from there.
Nice. We meet the helicopter zombie. While Roger is filling up the chopper, this zombie shows up and has to scramble on top of some boxes. And, of course, the helicopter cuts the top of his head off. What'd you think of that scene?
Oh, it was so gruesome, but so great. I love that part. I mean, you just knew what was coming and what he was headed for. And it's funny because it develops so slowly. It's like hilariously how slow it develops. But when the blood finally starts pouring from his brain, it's like the most gruesome thing.
Yeah, like at first you're like, what just happened? You just hear this, and then you see the blood streaming down his face. Oh, he got his head cut off. Or the top of his head cut off. And what about the kid zombies?
Yes, I was just going to mention the kid zombies.
Oh,
Ken
yeah.
Foray in the bunkhouse.
Yeah.
Just basically, you could tell like there was some laws, so he like throw them gently onto the couch.
Well, I like how he stands back. He hears them in the closet, and he fires at like a normal head level.
Yeah.
But then there's still noises, and he's like, "Oh no, I think these are kids."
Oh shoot!
You see that look on his face, and then he shoots the kids, and he's like, "You see the effects of all this killing slowly start to affect the characters."
Yeah.
You know, like Roger earlier in the SWAT scene in the projects. He's like, you know, what is going on here? And then now you start to see it in Ken Foray.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, these are just kids. I had to kill them, right? They're zombies, but I had to kill them.
Yeah. Even before that, I mean, you see a tear, and there's such a. There's something about George Romero. I mean, he doesn't. One of the things I wish he would have done in this movie more was like hold a beat longer for some of those like reaction shots. But there's this wonderful moment where Ken Foray, like a tear rolls down his eye, and he realizes that they're just people, and this thing has happened to them while he's loading his gun.
Yeah.
To put another bullet in the head of this zombie at his ankles is, that image stuck with me, and it's kind of like that statement on just society in general, which this movie stands in for.
Yeah.
But that was one of those moments that, like you said, you can see it starting to wear and tear on these people.
Yeah. And then there's a great shot where Steven, who's learning to shoot his gun, takes aim at the zombie who's sneaking up on Ken Foray.
Yeah.
And Ken Foray jumps out of the way. And then there's a weird shot in there too, where the kids are like having a death spasm. Did you catch that?
No.
They're on the couch, but they're just like, ugh.
They're still moving. It's like,
right.
stop moving. You're dead. Yeah.
And so then there's some, interplay there between Ken Foray and Stephen Flyboy. He starts calling him Flyboy.
Yeah.
And he says, how does it feel to have a gun pointed at you?
Yeah. And I mean, I read into that scene as something more, it's a black man with a gun over a white man and kind of saying, how does it feel?
Yeah.
That was a statement. I don't know if it was intentional by Romero, but again, another moment in this film that makes a statement larger than, just the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
And so they move on in their journey, and they see what? They see a mall.
Oh, before the mall, though.
Uh-huh.
How about the rednecks?
Oh, yeah, the redneck shooting party. That's great.
And the Iron City beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Iron City. And then the music playing there, too.
Yeah.
It's just like some country song, and they're like, oh, what? You got him, or like, oh, I missed him.
Yeah.
There's a guy I found on YouTube called Adam the Woo.
Oh yeah,
and we'll post a link in the show notes. Nice. He goes to different locations where movies were shot, and he went to Monroeville and Pittsburgh, and he talks about all the locations in Dawn of the Dead, and one of them is the redneck shooting gallery. So then they move on and they go to the mall, and that's Monroeville Mall.
Yes, which was one of my parents' childhood malls. That and Greengate Mall in around Greensburg. So
wow,
some personal connection. I actually went there a few times. We would go visit family. So yeah.
And that was in the 90s, or?
Well, when I was a kid,
yeah.
But my parents grew up going there.
Nice. And then the whole mall. Basically, the rest of the movie takes place in the mall, right? They come into the mall. They figure out, oh, you know what? We can hole up here for a while. Mm-hmm. So then they've got to get rid of all the zombies.
Yeah.
They've got to go zombie hunting.
Yeah. I mean, they've got to go, and they call it, what do they call it? Hit and run.
Right.
They're in the place and like, you know what? I bet you there's a lot of nice stuff in here. How about a hit and run?
Yeah.
And they start just basically ransacking the place. And like you said, they're gonna try and seal it off now. They want to hole up there.
And it's just funny when they turn on the switches for all the power and the music comes on.
Yeah.
I just thought, and then the music in the film too. In the credits, it's called, the music's credited to Dario Argento and the Goblins. It's actually just Goblin.
Yeah.
And they did music for Suspiria. And, Dario Argento was one of the big investors in this movie. It wouldn't have gotten made had he not put money into it.
Who was he?
Dario Argento was a great Italian film director, horror film director. Directed Suspiria, which might show up on an upcoming episode.
Yeah.
So he's doing the music. It's crazy music in this movie. What'd you think of the music?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, there's moments where it's kind of cool, like the atmospheric stuff. But when they're in the mall and they're playing that weird music, it was creepy. I mean, rightfully so. It's a horror film, but I was like, I don't like.
But
this.
it's like the music you'd hear in a mall,
right?
And then you see the zombies on the ice rink and the crazy zombies on the escalator. There's Sweater Zombie on the escalator.
Love Sweater Zombie.
He makes it to the end of the movie.
Yes.
There's Krishna Zombie. Lots of different zombies. Oh, and my favorite was the baseball zombie.
Which one was that?
You remember there's a scene where Franny comes up and she's in it's like a JCPenney that they go into.
Right.
And she's up there, and she's behind the glass, and there's a baseball zombie. He just kind of squats down on the floor, and he's like staring into her eyes longingly.
Yeah, and she, I mean, hey, it's instincts, right?
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, he's a human. I mean, this is a sad state.
And like, what'd you think of, okay, so she reveals that she's pregnant.
Oh, boy.
And then you remember she's like smoking, she's drinking.
She's drinking the whole time. You can see her belly bump, and, time has passed while they're in this mall, and she's still drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I think that the actress was very adamant that her character was not flailing and screaming.
Exactly.
And, they even have a moment in the film where she's like, I want to be in on these decisions.
Right.
I'm not just a third wheel, some kid you have to lug around. And, for that part, I appreciate that fact. I think that, they're smart in that decision. But then it's like, okay, well, she's pregnant now, so she can't, she can't drink or smoke. And yet that's, I guess when it's in the zombie apocalypse, all bets are off.
Exactly. And you remember she's like, I don't know about you guys, but I want to learn how to fly that chopper.
Yeah, which is smart. And that would be my first instinct if I didn't know.
Right. And I love the part where they, I think it's Ken Foray, where he says, we're going on a hunt.
Yeah.
It's like right after they lock all the outer doors.
Yep.
And they've got to clean up all the zombies.
Yeah.
They get the trailers. Remember, they get the tractor trucks to block the entrances.
Yep.
Yeah,
Peter
gets bit.
Yeah, Peter gets bit.
Now, what was in the bag? That's what I want to know. Remember, he forgets his bag. And he's like, we got to go back. We got to go back.
I think he just had stuff in it.
Right. I mean, it's nothing he couldn't leave behind. I mean,
and I was ready for Peter to die. I mean, he was annoying. I did not like Peter.
Well, remember what Ken Foray tells him? He's like, have you got your head on straight?
Yeah. Yeah, you straight, man. Yeah, you straight.
You're not just fooling with your life. You're fooling with mine.
Yeah, exactly.
I've used that line in my own real life before. But yeah, so what's in the bag? We don't know. But he has to go back and get it. And as a result, he gets bitten. And so we know he's going to turn into a zombie eventually.
Yeah.
And there's a heartfelt scene between
quote unquote heartfelt
between him and Ken Foray, where he's saying, hey man, once I turn, just do me the honors and kill me.
Yeah. And then he's like, I'm not getting up, man. I'm not getting up. And there's a part where he's like delirious and he's like, did we get him? Did we get him?
Yeah.
And Ken Foray's just like sitting in, outside the room. It's like, yeah, we got him. He's like, we whipped him. We whipped him and we got them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that scene too, where he gets bit. Right, there's a whole struggle. He's trying to get into the cab with the truck.
Right.
And Ken Foray, great moment where he's like, he's trying to get a shot, right? He's got his gun. He's like, get back, man. And then later he's like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah,
after,
I love
Roger
that
gets
moment.
bitten.
Yeah. It's just like, damn. It's like, no, he got bit. We let him go. I was like, Ken, just drop him and go, man. Drop him and go.
And so, it's like the whole movie, like they talk about, oh, this meant something in their lives. This is why they came back to the mall.
Yeah.
There's a whole undercurrent there, a theme, subtext of like consumerism.
Yeah.
Even them, as they stay there and they've got everything they want, like in the mall, right? There's a barber shop in the mall. There's a gun shop.
Yeah.
Franny's at one point, they're having dinner and she's like, what
have we done?
Right.
Yeah.
What are we turned into?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny because even before Peter gets bit, they form this family, And it's like any a lot of the tropes that that are you see in zombie movies today kind of started with what Romero was trying to do. I mean, you have this nuclear family of misfit people that are just forced together because of these circumstances,
Right.
and they have to get along.
Yeah, and they form a greater team,
Right.
as a result.
Yeah, and I mean, for most part, you're kind of endeared to them, but you don't know. It's a horror film. You don't know whether you're supposed to care for these characters or just wait for them to die.
Right.
And part of it was, Steven was eventually going to go down. I was just waiting for when. I felt like Franny was going to make it, because she was adamant flying the chopper, and then she's going to get out of there, because every good zombie movie needs a chopper.
And what about Peter? Did you think he was actually going to kill himself at the end? Remember, he's got the little gun. He's like, "Go without me." He's going to shoot himself.
I thought he was going to sacrifice himself, and then I realized, like, what for? Like, why are you staying behind? You don't need to fight them off.
Right.
and then he makes the split second decision and is like, he dun dun dun, and he just dumps it, and then his karate skills kick in.
Yeah.
And he's doing these high kicks to these zombies' foreheads, and this heroic music is playing in the background.
I think he kicks Sweater Zombie because Sweater Zombie makes it up to the roof.
He does.
Franny's in the chopper.
Doesn't he grab her leg or something?
I think so. But yeah, there's like he does like this whole OJ thing where he's running through, tackling them, kicking them, doing the kung fu kicks.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, the original ending to the movie was that they both commit suicide.
Really?
Yeah. So Peter shoots himself in the head, and Franny leans up into the helicopter blades.
Oh, shoot.
Because there is that shot of her, like, remember, she's kind of waiting for Peter to see if he's going to come up.
Yeah.
And she's kind of hanging out of the door.
Yeah.
Originally, in Romero's original script, they were both going to just kill each other, commit suicide, and that was the end of the movie.
Oh, wow.
It would have been interesting because the last shot was like the helicopter, just a close-up on the helicopter blades as it ran out of gas and just stopped.
Oof.
That would have been interesting, but instead, they changed it while they were shooting to this happier ending where it's still not a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
They're flying off into God knows what, right? You don't know what they're going to encounter. They're going to run out of gas.
Yeah.
So it's hopeful. I guess it's bittersweet, but yeah.
Yeah. And they have so many adventures along the way. They're like taking out this group of anarchists that raid the mall. But yeah, I mean, and again, you see a lot of echoes that things like The Walking Dead, like the whole zombie fever that kind of washed over the country a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. And this is when zombies were not cool, I guess. Right. They weren't mainstream at all yet.
Yeah.
But it spawned a lot of copycat films, especially over in Italy. Lots of Italian films that were not a lot gorier.
Yeah.
But not with the same themes or, intents. They were just like trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah. So, I mean, thanks for sharing this one with me because, I mean, this is a film that not only am I going to watch again, but, I'm going to see something new in it every time. And it means something deeper to me now. I mean, a lot of the themes running through it, seeing Ken Foray and just his performance. Yeah. And some of the things that he does in this movie just, it has become a standard for me and kind of like a role model in a sense. So, I mean, this has become a new staple. I have to watch this one on Halloween, around Halloween now. And,
it's got elements of horror and comedy to it.
Oh, so yeah.
I know Romero meant it to be more of a comic book feel to it. Like the blood is very, pink.
Yeah.
It doesn't look real at all.
It's paint, yeah.
And then you've got Tom Savini, makeup master, appearing as the one of the bikers. And that poor zombie that he takes a machete to his head.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that was the cover of Fangoria magazine. I'm like, ooh.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah. So, classic film to me. I hadn't seen it in a long time until last week. But I was just reminded of how great a film it is and what a talent George Romero was.
Yeah.
And how it inspired everything from World War Z to The Walking Dead. So that was Dawn of the Dead.
All right, that's going to do it for our All Hallows Eve episode. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed.
Yes, thanks for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks with a brand new episode where we talk about a classic British franchise featuring puppets and Bill Paxton. See you then. Well, that does it for another episode of Film Loop. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us out a lot. For references and links mentioned in this episode, visit us online at FilmLoopShow.com. Don't forget to share your thoughts and comments and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FilmLoop Show. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. See you next time on Film Loop. Get back, man! Damn.